I would like to call to order the September 10th, 2020 regular meeting of the Southport Board of Aldermen. It is a solemn time, the eve of September 11th, when terrorists struck our country and killed 2,977 innocent souls on that fall morning. We grieve over the loss of life and honor the courage on that day, as among those who died were 23 New York City police officers, 37 Port Authority officers, and 343 members of the New York City Fire Department. There was a heroic young man who worked in the South Tower who was a volunteer firefighter who helped to save lives on that day and was known as the man with the red bandana, similar to the one I have with me tonight. This bandana right here that he carried, similar to this. And it's the one that I have carried with me every September 11th since learning of the compelling story of Wells Crowther. He was 24 years old when he lost his life on that day. To hear about his story, you can watch my video address on the 19th anniversary of September 11th and Southport's tribute to those who lost their lives on that day. Part of that tribute is having our fire chief, Charles Drew, lead us in our invocation tonight. It is most appropriate to have Charles Drew lead us in prayer this evening to honor those firefighters and first responders who answered the call to service on that day. Our invocation tonight will include a moment of silence for the passing of longtime Southport resident and local dentist, Dr. Larry Hembe, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance.
Today we pause to remember that moment of horror and pray for those left scarred by those terrible events. Shall we pray? O gracious and loving Father of all creation, we pause this evening to remember. We remember the first time we heard the news. We recall the first time we saw those images. We remember the way our thoughts and prayers were with the families who lost loved ones. Our thoughts and prayers are with them again today. Heavenly Redeemer, we pray for those that are still affected by the results of that dreadful day. We ask today that you would heal our land, that you would protect our citizens, and that you would touch each one that is assembled here today. O God of comfort, though the years have passed, you're faithful, yesterday, today, and forever. We ask that your love and your peace would endure. We remember today those that survived. We remember the pain that we felt. And we recall the bereavement and the bitterness of the aftermath. We remember today that you are a God of restoration. Help us today to forgive those who cause so much trauma to our world, and that they may find a release in that forgiveness. Bless this now, our present assembly. We pray for our mayor, our aldermen, our city staff, the first responders who protect us every day, and our citizens. May the peace of the Lord surround us evermore. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Thank you, Chief Drew, for those inspiring words. Next item on the agenda is public comment. Madam Clerk. Welcome, Ms. Bray, and if you would, remove your mask, cut on the microphone, announce your name and your address, please. Thank you.
It's green light, right? I got a green light. All right. My name is Bonnie Bray. I'm chair of the Southport Beautification Committee, and I'd like to call Marjorie Jones and Mary Friend to the podium. Please. Shirley Snyder was going to be here, and it looks like she's been detained. We are, on behalf of the current committee board, members are here, if you would please stand and be recognized. We are here to recognize 2 outstanding residents for meritorious service to the city of Southport. Marjorie Jones was until recently the longest serving beautification board member, 10 years, until she stepped down this July. Nick Kern, our second honoree, was the first and longest participating beautification volunteer, including many years on the board. Unfortunately, Nick passed away this summer, so previous past chair, Mary Friend, is here to accept Nick's certificate posthumously. With more than 20 years of active service between them, Marjorie and Nick dedicated their time and attention to a great variety of now familiar landmarks you see around town, including our peace poles, the pollinator garden, the restored lifeboat that miraculously escaped damage during our last hurricane, and new ornamental grass beds surrounding the memorials and waterfront park, among many other projects. Marjorie and Nick also spent countless hours fulfilling the core mission of the Beautification Committee, which is to keep Southport cleaned up, weeded, pruned, stained, decorated, painted, planted, and beautiful. Marjorie and Nick provided a steadfast and devoted model to all of us, and we will miss them in the trenches and their wise counsel at the board table. All of the above can also be said about Mary Friend, who practically started the whole darn thing. So Shirley and I were taking this opportunity to honor her service as well. Surprise, I got you here under double purposes. Mary, your vision, your hard work, and your tenacity got us where we are today, and we are very proud to follow in your very special footsteps. Thank you for caring about and caring for your hometown in so many tangible ways. We are in your debt. So without further ado, we are pleased to honor this amazing trio. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you and congratulations, and you certainly brought beauty to our meeting tonight. Thank you. Madam Clerk, anyone else?
Shirley Snyder.
Unfortunately, Shirley wasn't able.
She's not here.
That's all.
That's all. Is there anyone else here that would like to speak? All right, thank you. Item E, approval of the agenda. Everyone's looked at it, I'm sure. We have a motion to approve by Mr. Lombardi. Have a second? Second. Alderman Sharkey. Okay. Any discussion?
If we could remove the second line of that remark, amend it to that.
Okay, Mr. Lombardi, if you could amend your motion to say that, supposedly that will take care of it.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
I think you can go ahead and approve the agenda as the first motion was made, because the first thing you're going to do in the agenda is then approve the consent agenda where the minutes are. So I think your first motion's fine. Okay. But we're not changing the agenda. You're just going to change the approval of the consent agenda. So I think you can vote on the motion. if you
Yes,
want
okay,
to.
thank you, yeah. All in favor of approving the agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, motion carried. And the next item will be the consent agenda, which includes the approval of the August 13th, 2020 regular meeting minutes. Alderman Davis.
I move that we approve that with the exception of the item about my remarks. We amend that to strike the second line. Is that properly stated?
You move to approve the whole consent agenda and you strike the second line in the minutes.
Correct. Thank you. I'll get this language right long about year 4.
That's okay. So we have an approval of the consent agenda minus the one line in question. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Spencer. Any discussion? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Motion carried. Thank you. The next item will be the proclamation for the recognition of Constitution Week. Yeah, yeah. Okay. Whereas September 17th, 2020 marks the 233rd anniversary of the drafting of the Constitution of the United States of America by the Constitutional Convention, and whereas it is fitting and proper to accord official recognition to this magnificent document and its memorable anniversary, and to the patriotic celebrations which will commemorate the occasion. And whereas Public Law 915 guarantees the issuing of a proclamation each year by the President of the United States of America, designating September 17th through September 23rd as Constitution Week. Now, therefore, I, Joe Pat Hayden, by virtue of the authority vested in me as mayor of the town of Southport, do hereby proclaim the week of September 17th through 23rd as Constitution Week, and ask our citizens to reaffirm the ideals of the framers of the Constitution had in 1787 by vigilantly protecting the freedoms guaranteed to us through this guardian of our liberties. Remember that lost rights may never be regained. This is an important document, and it's appropriate that we celebrate it every year and cherish it every day. The second recognition I would like to make tonight is to recognize Chris May, our interim city manager. And Mr. May, if you would come up, please. Mr. May was executive director of the Capeville Council of Government, retired commander of the U.S. Coast Guard, and as I said, he was our interim city manager. He came to help us in transition. He had a new mayor and a new board. He led us in our workshop, and it was his grateful, we're grateful for his expertise, his gentle demeanor, and the many sayings we learned at least I learned, that were full of wisdom and humor. It is wonderful to have you back with us tonight, and I would like to present to you the authority given to me as mayor. I would like to present to you a key to the city. There we go. And if the board would come up, please, they have something for you as well.
This is Christmas.
This is a large and heavy token for all that you did to help us as emblem, and it's something that will remind you of all your hard work. You recognize that?
Close view. Isn't that gorgeous? That's great. Get 6 inches apart. Thank you.
Next item on our agenda, and thank you again, Mr. May, for being here. Next item on the agenda will be the salary study presentation by Mr. May.
Well, first of all, thank you. I was humbled, and I 40-some years of being in city government, I've never gotten a key to a city. I'd, got a lot of different things, but not a key to the city. Oh, gee. No, thank you very much for that. And I especially treasure that view of the marsh and the city dock, which is all in one piece in that picture. That's nice. That's hopefully that'll happen. Well, as you recall, as we started moving into the getting beyond COVID and talking about going into the fiscal year in June, we decided that there was no way to adequately determine where salaries should be without a proper comparison. And the only way to do a comparison was to actually look at what comparable salaries are in the different communities in our region and how they align with our positions. So you have an accountant and an accountant in 8 different communities, including the county. And so I set about to do that. You had had a full-blown salary survey and study done by the League of Municipalities and the MAPS group about 5 years ago, where you developed your job descriptions and your personnel policy and a lot of the tools that are real critical to what you do. But as things change, it is important to occasionally take a pulse check to see what the other communities are paying, because you are an employer of a commodity of service workers who are being sought after by other places. And if you want to have the best of the rest, you need to make sure that you have competitive salaries and that you have competitive workplace. And so I agreed to take this on and work on it and finish it up while I was up in Blowing Rock. I want to thank all of the 8 communities that helped me. We used Charlotte, North Myrtle Beach, Oak Island, Leland, Brunswick County, Ballhead Island, Holden Beach, and Boiling Spring Lakes, which were all good comparable communities to look at. And they were also the majority of the communities that your previous consultant had used when you did the actual large-scale pay plan. I found that there had been a number of changes, and I'm referring now to, I don't have a PowerPoint for you, but I'm referring to this handout here, the one that's colorful with the green columns, the pink column, and the yellow column. As you come down on the far left side, there are the grades which have been assigned to each of the various positions. The next column is the Southport hiring rate and maximum rate. So that's for your comparative purposes. Then, starting with the green column, alternating with white, all the way over to the edge where it's pink, will be all of the different communities, which were averaged so that our yellow column will show you the regional average starting salary, which I'll call the RAS. and so by looking at the regional average starting salary, you can look at your starting salary on the far left and see how you compare as you go down through there. Another part of what I did is on the very back, there is a pay scale. We had discussed the value of having an actual pay scale that went through 20 years that would show what each of the steps are for the specific grades. A grade is the placement assignment for an individual position, and then the step is how they progress across, and it's not necessarily tied to tenure, but typically mirrors that. So in 20 years, one knows that if they were in a grade X, they would be at a step Y whenever they're at the end of their 20 years. I recommend strongly that that be something that we look at in the future to merge our positions into that. Primarily because when you have the current setup of a beginning point, a midpoint, and a finishing, or a maximum, you've got all the gray area in between, and it's much like throwing darts at a dartboard to decide where someone is between beginning and midpoint. Whereas if they're in a step and grade system, which by the way is what the federal government uses and what the state government uses, so it is time tested. One knows that they will have starting at grade whatever, step 1, and then as they progress, they'll step 3, 4, 5, 6, and on. The steps are divided by 2.5%, and the grades are separated by 5%. It makes a nice matrix, and so it's very easy to follow. Initially, I would recommend that you take the regional average starting salary and align it with that pay scale, which may have to be shifted a little bit, but that will have your step 1 hiring rate matching the regional average starting salary. That's the beginning point. The hard work will become later this year at budget time during the winter and spring, and that's where we will align the balance of the employees at their current rates with that pay scale. And that, what I recommend there is that you simply look at what they're making now, look at the grade, follow it across until you get close to that salary, and merge up to match that salary. When we say merge up, that means money. So that's why I said you want to look at that later in the spring, in the winter and the spring, when you're doing your budget, because we have no idea what our budget's going to be like really until January. When we looked at the budget initially at your workshop last year in January and February, we hadn't really heard about COVID. And then as we got into the actual approval of the budget, we had some assurances and some guidelines, and we made some projections based on what we thought that it would be. And it has been fairly close to that, but one has learned that you can't totally depend on the future like you used to could. And so to be frugal before we make any promises or guarantees of giving a whole bunch of raises and a whole bunch of other things. We need to find out where we're going to be before we do that. When the time comes to do that, though, and should the board see fit to move forward with that, this creates a structure where you can fairly compensate people, and their pay will be in line with what those positions are in other parts of the region, so that you can retain them and so that you can recruit them. I think it is noteworthy as you look at what your starting salaries are and what the regional average is. They're not far off, so you're really not in terrible shape. I think that it's good that you've kept up with raises, but that you haven't been extravagant to the point to where you're way ahead or far exceed what the averages are. And I think that that the citizens would think that that's a good business decision to pay what is the going rate whenever you're looking at hiring people. Not too much, not too little, but the regional average. So that's my presentation. I feel like I've provided for you what you were looking for. If there's more that's needed, let me know. I've talked with staff, which, by the way, I brought some flowers to Melanie. She was incredible in helping me with all of this. I'm an old goat, and so I'm learning Excel spreadsheet. She knows it in her sleep and was able to help me with all of this stuff. And I've also worked close enough with her that she understands my methodology of how we merge people into this. And I've talked with Gordon as well. So when it comes time for the actual budgeting for all of the positions, I certainly would be available to chat. But I think Melanie and Gordon both have an understanding of how that it's done. It's not rocket science, and but it puts you in a pay scale that's both predictable and fair, and I think that's important. So, are there any questions from either you or the audience on this?
I have a couple, Chris. So the 2.5% annual step increases is dependent upon receiving a satisfactory annual performance review. Is that correct?
Correct. And I would want to say that I wouldn't want to call it an annual increase. It would be what you say a merit increase. So the 2.5 would be the minimum merit increase that one would warrant, unless they had achieved some training or whatever, and they're going to get shifted into another grade when it could be 5% or whatever, depending on. At the same time, if you wanted to award a cost of living to everyone of whatever percent, 1.6752, whatever, you simply multiply the spreadsheet by that amount, and the whole thing raises by that amount. So it doesn't disrupt the integrity of the 2.5 between.
And so you've given us the regional average starting salary. Do we need a regional average maximum salary, do you think? And is the maximum truly, I mean, is that what does the maximum truly mean? The maximum, you max out at that, you no longer, is that what that means? Or what?
And I'm glad you asked that question, because that comes up. I've done these all over the region, and that's a question that comes up, especially since you have to be in service for 30 years in order to retire, and this only goes to 20. It's presumed that one will not stay in the same grade for 20 years, and that they will at some point, if they're of value to the town, receive training and experience that would cause them to be moved up. So if they're a laborer one, they might become a laborer technician, who might become a supervisor, who might become a public works director. And so you shouldn't have a situation where anybody maxes out. However, there have been cases where people did not want to be anything other than what they were, and they were really good at it and didn't feel comfortable moving from there. And they shouldn't be penalized for that if they're doing a great job for the town. So if they max out at 20 years, what I have always recommended was that they receive a 2.5% one-time bonus at the end of the year. And that keeps them at that 20 year, because you can't go beyond that, but they also get a reward. And so that is one way to look at it. I still think that if somebody's doing a really good job for you, and they're at a starting grade, and yet to replace them, you'd have to hire somebody with much greater skills. There needs to be a way to shift them up into a higher grade and recognize that, so that that wouldn't happen.
And so basically, the maximum simply becomes year 20 in the grade chart.
Right,
Right.
right.
So-
Yeah, that would just simply be the maximum for that grade. If the, when the starting salary is merged with that and moved up into that pay scale starting step one, then automatically those 20 steps would be in line with the regional maximum. So,
Thank you.
it took a lot of trial and error over the years to come up with this idea of having a RAS and doing all, but it became tried and true. And while I was a COG director, there were a number of places who had used the halfway to midpoint and all that kind of stuff. When they saw this, they really liked it. And especially it was interesting that the state personnel plan uses this. Not only about the RAS, but they use the step and grade plan and federal government as well. So, any further questions?
I have one thing I want to ask you to do something, which is explain to everybody who's here why we ask you to do this. I mean, it seems like one of these things that you look at and you'd say, gee, of course.
Yeah.
But why wasn't it an of course for us?
Yeah, there were a couple of positions that were hoping for increases. And before those positions received an increase, we thought that we needed to look and see what other people are paying that same position. And there were also folks that had said, well, so-and-so's the same thing as me over in another town, they're making X amount. And, I think I should be able to make as much as them. And so the best way to answer those kind of questions from personnel is to truth it, find out what other people are making. That way, we got it in black and white, what the other folks are making. And let it fall where it will. You run the risk that you might find out that you're grossly underpaying your people and you need to raise them up. Or you might find that they're grossly overpaid, but you would not know until you actually did the study. So that's why we did that.
While we were preparing the budget for this coming year, this goes back several months, it came to light that we didn't have anything like this.
That's right.
There had been something in the past, but for some reason it had been, set aside, and so no employee was sure of where they stood and what they could expect year to year. So something like this is, well, first of all, self-evident, and this is really well done.
Thank you. And I think it makes a great recruiting tool whenever someone's looking at a town that has the halfway to midpoint and all of that, or they're looking at you with a step and grade, they feel like they can reasonably project where they should be in 10 years, as opposed to, well, wherever the dart lands on the other way of doing that. And not to be overly critical of that, but there is no way to know where one will be in 10 years other than where you should be at midpoint, which is 15 years in, and where you finish up at 30. But at 10 or 17 or whatever, one doesn't know. With this, you can easily project, and that's assuming that you're going to earn the merit increase each year. There may be years where you don't, and I recall in 2006, 7, 8, 9, that the Council of Governments, like many of our member governments, received no increases because there was a crash of the economy. And we reflect our communities, and so there's no guarantee of a raise. There's no guarantee of a job. So, but this does give us a template to follow.
The public that doesn't have one of these, I don't think we had enough for everybody to look at. This is what this thing looks like. It's very, it's a table. It goes from 1 to 35, and it goes out to 20. And so this covers all of the city positions, and so anybody in any position can look at it and see, well, I've had this many years and I'm at this grade, this is where I am, and this is what I can expect next next year, next year, next year, you know?
Thank you. And I assume that this will be made available to the public if they want to look at that, maybe on the website or something like that. I don't want to be presumptuous, but I would recommend that it go on there, because it is your money, and we are your employees. So,
Yes, everything in our packet should be on the website.
okay, good, good.
Or-
Okay, well,
Any other questions?
I'll be continuing to work closely with Gordon and with Melanie and making sure that we answer any questions or moving forward. Y'all are welcome to drive up to Blowing Rock and visit any 95-degree day and enjoy 70 degrees on my porch. Thank you very much. And again, thank you for the gracious gifts.
Thank you, Mr. May, and thank you for being here and for your service to Southport. A great study that'll help guide us forward, so thank you. Next item on the agenda is the public hearing on Bonnet Way annexation request. City Planner, Mr. Lloyd.
All right, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So we've been through this this request a couple of times. It's the Bonnet Way townhome properties, and there's 32 townhomes, and it also includes a HOA common area. The petition has been signed by all property owners. They already have access to city services, but they're looking to qualify for the in-city water and sewer rates because there are some savings there. The Board of Aldermen directed the city clerk to verify that the petition was sufficient. She did that at the July meeting. She reported that it was sufficient, or it was verified, excuse me, at the August 13th meeting. The public hearing was set for September 10th, but we have had a hiccup. There was a notification issue in the paper. It's supposed to be 10 days before the hearing, and we did not meet that deadline. So I've consulted with the city attorney, and just to make sure that we keep it in accordance with NCGS 168-31, the city attorney has recommended that we continue this hearing until October 8th. Certainly people can still speak if they wish to, but in order for us to meet that notification deadline, it's recommended that we continue it until October 8th. And Mike, do you have anything to add there?
No, we legally could not hold the public hearing tonight anyway, so we would just need a motion to continue the public hearing until the October meeting.
So
Thank you. I'll
moved.
entertain a motion. Okay, Mayor Pro Tem, second by Alderman Sharkey. Any further discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Okay, motion carried. Thank you. And thank you, Mr. Lloyd. Item 6, approval of Mcgill and Associates for Taylorfield Project Phase 1. Ms. Hempe?
Good evening. You guys, as you know, we have been working on getting Taylorfield ready to start spending our part of money to build a park there. And we have before you tonight a contract with Mcgill and Associates outlining how we would like to go about in doing that. You know, we advertised and got a couple of RFPs in. Gordon and I met and looked at the qualifications and really liked Mcgill and Associates. They're also the ones that did our part of application work with us, so obviously they're very familiar with this project. And so we felt good about that firm, and you have before you a contract to look at the city entering in to get started on this project or complete the first phase of this project. Do you have any questions that I or Gordon can answer?
I have a
Any
question.
questions?
Probably the number one question I hear from people in Southport is there going to be a dog park? And the number two question is, when? And people are concerned that they haven't seen any diagrams or pictures that show this is where the dog park's gonna be, this is what it's gonna look like, this is how big it's gonna be. In other words, what's the design? And
Yes, ma'am, we did do that in the Mcgill and Associates when we contracted with them. That was part of requirements was we did do a design and a drawing, and that design does include a dog park. It will be located towards if you're looking straight down at Taylor Field and you have the cemetery on your right, if you look straight down in that little square area past the cemetery is where right now it is designed to be.
In the agenda packet of documents that we got 40 pages from this company, this Mcgill and Associates, and the only picture that I could see in this was this image of possibilities that they showed us, gosh, it was about a year ago, wasn't it?
Yes, ma'am.
We had a couple of days to come and look at and put stickers on what we wanted.
Right.
And of course, there was this big cluster of stickers by Dog Park.
Right.
I don't know if there was anybody wanting a splash pool, but this is showing a splash pool and, let's see, an amphitheater. So obviously, this is not the plan. Would it be possible to get that plan into the newspaper?
Yes, ma'am.
On our website, anywhere, so the public can see and recognize that we're actually going to get a dog park, and will it be sizable?
Yes, ma'am. The design, and I'll be happy, Alex, to give you another copy of it. The design was what the city voted on. The specs are exactly what the city voted on, and based on what the residents voted on is how we applied to part of and got the money. But just remember, with this packet that you guys got, this is just their qualifications. This is not Taylor Field alone. One of the aspects of an RFP is trying to find, their qualifications in any other parks that they actually did design, and follow through on the construction with that, which we're kind of now in that second phase. So does that answer your question? Right now, we have set the target for phase 1 to be completed by the end of September of 2021. So since the dog park is in the first phase, that's kind of our target date for that entire first phase to be completed, which does include the dog park.
Heather, did we have included in the initial budget an amount for the consultant?
Yes,
and is
sir.
this more or less in line with what we anticipated?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Any further questions for the Director, Parks and Rec?
I don't have a question, but I do want to say that I had the good fortune to work with Mcgill and Associates during the development of the Taylor Field Park Master Plan, and the words come to mind: professional, experience, energy, excellence, and it was important that they knew Southport. So it was a really good experience for anybody that was able to participate in it.
Okay, thank you. I'll entertain a motion to select Mcgill and Associates to be the engineer and to authorize the city manager to enter into a contract with them.
So moved.
Mr. Allen, and second by Mayor Pro Tem. Any further discussion? Okay. All in favor? Any opposed? Okay. Motion carried unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hemphill. Item 7. A presentation by Tanya Hilliard and Karen Holbrook regarding Parks and Recreation Summer Camp, the STEM program, and the tennis program.
They're all coming up here. Well, it's been about 4 years ago, and the three ladies, Karen, Tanya, and Maureen, but everybody calls her Cookie, so I didn't want you to get confused if you heard me say Cookie, kind of brainstormed and came up with a program that to work with kids even when they were out during the summer, to keep them active and keep their brain active. And I guess, you know, when they first started it, didn't really know how far this program would go, but it ended up winning the North Carolina National Junior Tennis Association Program of the Year for 2019. And so I wanted, have asked all of them to come up and talk about the program and, you know, what they contribute to it, and their passions. And then we do have a slideshow, a brief slideshow presentation to just kind of show you some things. Miss Moore is setting that up. And then I do have plaques of recognition I'd like to give to both entities. And also we do have, they're wearing their t-shirts, so we've got you guys, all of you sitting up there, we have you a t-shirt that you can wear too. So first I'm going to introduce Tanya Hilliard, and she's going to talk about her nonprofit, LC Outreach, and what they're about, and working here. Or Cookie, you let us know when you're ready for that. You all ready for that? No? Okay. All right, here's Tanya.
Good evening, and thank you for having us here tonight. My name is Tanya Hilliard, and I'm the president of LC Outreach Project Incorporated. LC Outreach Project is named in love and memory of my grandfather, Lorenzo Clemens, who was a fine Christian educated businessman who lived right here in Southport. He owned and operated highway cleaners for many years. The organization was established as a solution to the myriad of issues faced by students here in Brunswick County. We offer alternatives for students to enhance education programs, which consist of an after-school program and summer academic camp. In 2017, we established a partnership with Southport Parks and Recreation Department and implemented an educational component to their already existing program. Our focus was to maximize students' time away from school, increase student growth academically, and to minimize regression in reading and math skills during summer months. In 2018, the two organizations partnered with Brunswick County Tennis Association, and the Brunswick County National Junior and Tennis, Learning Program was formed. Other than an academic camp, students have also been able to engage in tennis lessons provided by Brunswick County Tennis Association, chess lessons, life skills classes, for example, cooking lessons, STEM projects, and service learning projects. Each year, another Brunswick County nonprofit, Computers for Kids, donates and sets up a computer lab with 15 plus computers that go home with students at the end of camp. Power Walking Ministries, also another nonprofit here in Brunswick County, provides each student with a pair of sneakers for playing tennis. We end camp every year with a tennis carnival, and at that time, students are able to exhibit the tennis skills that they've learned. So Summer Camp 2020, our numbers were decreased, due to COVID-19. Students were administered pre and post reading and math assessments where 97% of the students showed growth in both subjects. It is our pleasure to serve our community, and thank you.
Okay. I'm Karen Holbrook. I'm a member of the Brunswick County Tennis Association. This is Bob Cause over here. He's our president. And Don Pieper has been a volunteer ever since we started our youth program. Our program that we run with the Parks Department and with LC Outreach is called the National Junior Tennis and Learning Program. It was founded by Arthur Ashe 51 years ago. You all know he's a very famous tennis player. His goal was to bring tennis and education together to change children's lives. And I think we've done that here in Southport. And that's one of the reasons why we won the North Carolina NJTL Chapter of the Year. There's 18 chapters in North Carolina, and we were honored to receive that award in Pinehurst this January. So we are part of the United States Tennis Association. The NJTL is a branch of that. So I want to just tell you what we do, and real briefly. The USTA, the United States Tennis Association, provides us with equipment that's appropriate for children. They also give us a curriculum that we can use to teach tennis and also sportsmanship. They also provide background checks for all of our volunteers. We're all volunteers. So all of us have had criminal background checks that are paid for by the United States Tennis Association. Then they come down here and train our volunteers. They come from the North Carolina Tennis Association in Greensboro. Now, what does our local, the Brunswick County Tennis Association do? We recruit volunteer coaches, and we have our president, who is a trained tennis pro, who leads the tennis activities for the kids. We provide the t-shirts, and the kids also get new shoes, new sneakers every year, provided by Power Walking Ministries. And we give them, at the end of the summer, they get to have a new tennis racket and some balls to practice with. What happened at the beginning of this year, when we were getting ready to start the program, the kids weren't in school because of the flu epidemic. So we came up with a tennis and learning video challenge that we conducted with the Parks Department and with LC Outreach. And Bob Cause, our president, is going to tell you about that.
What we did as far as the tennis goes, USTA put out recommendations, what you have to do to be safe in practices as far as distancing, making sure everything's sanitized, and so forth. Since there wasn't any groups that we can get everybody together, we decided to have a challenge. We asked them to try to do a tennis ball so many times bouncing off the racket, bouncing on the ground, hit a foam ball against the wall, how many times you can do it, turn a videotape into us, and you would win a special prize. And the special prizes were RC Outreach. They got an adult package. You know, the kids gets things from us, from Brunswick County Tennis Association. We had a goodie bag, gave them some yo-yos and hats and some candy and some goodies. But the parents appreciated the good stuff, which you couldn't get at that time, such as paper towels, toilet paper, Lysol, things of that nature. So when the car pulled up, after they get their prize, the parents got their bag, the kids got their bag, and everybody came out happy. But it worked out really nice. But the big thing is, each year we've been working with Cookie Moore since about 2016 in her program. And we've taken it from down here to way up here. Each year Cookie gets after us to say, let's do something different, let's do something more. And we have. We got RC Outreach working with us, educating the children. We're doing more from a tennis standpoint. We got, if you take a look at my t-shirt in the back, all these sponsors, we kind of coordinated with them, and that's what it is. It's a partnership with the sponsors, your Parks and Rec Department and Brunswick County Tennis Association, to get more things, such as the laptops and such as the equipment that we get from USTA Tennis. And you have a tremendous program now in Southport, really growing, something that Cookie has taken it, like I said, from down here to up here. And hope you have the video on the tennis challenge. On the ceiling. Okay. Sure. Because of the virus situation, normally we have between 40 and 50. This year we had a limited from a capacity standpoint down to 20. And what would happen is 10 of them would be in the center over there doing the learning. Probably 10 would be on the court, and then an hour later we just do a flip-flop. So it worked out pretty well this year from that standpoint.
What are the ages?
Ages were from 5 to 10 this year. In the past, when we had more, the ages pretty much ranged from 5 to about 13. So keep them going. Some of the ones we started like in 2016, some of the 5-year-olds are now bigger and they're hitting the ball better and really got involved in your program. And it's a real nice program that they had put together. This is like going to one of those stargazing things. Call them planetariums. Oh well. We'll put it on the website. But again, we want to thank you, the people of Southport, and support that you've been giving Brunswick County Tennis Association. Like I said, when we started, we actually ran right outdoor in the tennis court an hour before the parades. We started on the 4th of July. We started doing some of that for the kids to get them something to do. But again, thank you very much for all the support you all give.
Yeah, thank you. Anytime you can combine science and tennis, that's a winning combination. So thank you.
Can I give them their plaque first?
Absolutely.
Yes. Okay. And as you can see, Parks and Rec, you have to be fluid. Here, Cookie. Did you want to say anything about the program? It's your brainchild.
Well, the only thing I can say is that it's been wonderful, but this year was a real challenge because of the COVID and everything, but we made it work with everybody with LC and tennis. It all worked out great, and the kids had a wonderful time.
So first is LL Outreach. LC. And then I left your little your packet on.
Okay, thank you. Yes, this is to LC Outreach for their continued support of Southport Parks and Recreation through the Southport Academics and Tennis Camp 2020.
Thank you.
And this one goes to Brunswick County Tennis Association for their continued support of Southport Parks and Recreation through the Southport Academics and Tennis Camp 2020. Thank you so much. And also we have shirts for every one of the board members. And the mayor.
Yes, so she's got them right back there.
Yes. Thank you.
Item 8, budget amendment, number 3, Scott Rogers.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Finance Director Melanie Trexler could not be here this evening, so she asked me to stand in. And the purpose for being here this evening is the budget amendment number 3, where we had a truck that was damaged, and we have received insurance reimbursement for it, but we need to formally request that the board appropriate those funds from the insurance reimbursement to this year's budget.
Any questions for Mr. Rogers? Okay. Be happy to entertain a motion.
I move to approve budget amendment number 3.
Motion by Mr. Allen, second by Mayor Pro Tem. Any discussion? All in favor? Motion carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rogers. Next item, committee reports. Anyone from the planning board?
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to again recognize the planning board for their service to our community. In addition to the regular duties, the planning board for almost 2 years, they have been working with our city planner, Thomas Lloyd, and Cape Fear Council of Government consultant, Wes McLeod, to update the city's Unified Development Ordinance. The updated UDO document is available for review on the city website, and the second public hearing is being advertised currently and is scheduled for September 23rd at 6 p.m. here in the community building. So this will be another opportunity for citizens to ask questions and express their thoughts about the proposed UDO updates. Again, special thanks to the volunteers of the planning board, our city planner, Thomas Lloyd, and our consultant, Wes McLeod, for the literally hundreds of hours of their time and talents dedicated to this project to update the UDO.
Mr. Lombardi.
Yeah, beautification committee was busy. We interviewed 6 applicants to fill 5 positions. Maria Lowther and Rob Thatcher for in-city positions. That's who were approved. And 3 for out-of-city, Lynn Guyman, Karen Pasquale, and Ken Guyman. And that was for the out-of-city positions. And that filled all the required positions we had available. We have a meeting coming up, and officer positions will be voted on at the next meeting. Further, for the beautification, Saturday, September 5th cleanup, there were 21 volunteers to complete all the scheduled work. A great turnout, and thank you to all. Going on, Board of Adjustments, there'll be a September 15th meeting of the Board of Adjustments. That's it.
Good report. Thank you. Flo Davis.
Thank you. Forestry Committee met this week and finalized the bylaws. We'd had to tweak something to be absolutely right in the way we were doing it and conform to the way Planning Board and Board of Adjustment do their selections. The Forestry Committee members and volunteers have gone around town to inventory damage to trees, to inventory the trees that the Forestry Committee has planted over the last 6 to 10 years. All but 2 were doing quite well after the hurricane. Now, quite a few people have asked me, why is there a yellow ribbon on this wonderful live oak out in front of my house? With Public Works, I believe our Public Works Director did an awful lot of work to look at all the trees, all the public trees in the public right-of-way, and there's a yellow ribbon. And you don't have to run out and chain yourself to the tree to save the tree. It's not going to be cut down. It's going to be, you know, the slashed and damaged limbs that are hanging down. This yellow ribbon just marks this is a tree that needs some attention, not a tree that we're going to chop down. Also, the committee talked about a tutorial that's on YouTube called Why Trees Die. And an arborist presented this. It's really good and informative, not unduly boring and scientific. It answers your questions about why is this great tree dying? And some of it is things that we do, and some of it is just the natural progression through a tree's lifespan. I'm pretty sure that it either is or will be by tomorrow on the city website so that you can go to it and look at it too. Very, very informative. And I know that this is a community that cares about trees, so I recommend it. That's it from me.
Thank you. Alderman Sharkey? Okay. Mr. Spencer? Alderman Allen? Okay, thank you. Next up on the agenda, Manager's Report. Mr. Hargrove.
I just have a few items I'd like to share with you tonight. We have determined that the last day to bring storm debris to the side of the road is going to be September 18th. We anticipate having the entire community cleaned up by the second week of October. Would also like to update you on the Howe Street Sidewalk project going to the famous Amos. Right now we are waiting on a traffic study to be completed. Once completed, that project will move forward. Additionally, the Short Street, both these next two projects have kind of been held up due to the storm and the amount of debris that's on the road. The Short Street traffic flow is going to be reversed to try to help some of the problems down there. We hope to have that done by September 25th. Additionally, the pedestrian corridor that we spoke about several meetings back around the yacht basin should also be completed by September 25th. We have all the materials and equipment and goods that we need to complete both these jobs, so we look forward to getting those completed. That's all. Do y'all have any questions for me?
I have a question, Gordon. Are we using Taylor Field as like staging area for the storm debris? And if so, have we thought about what we're going to do once a park is there and for future storms and things?
Yes, sir. We are using Taylor Field to stage the debris. We have communicated to the, well, first of all, the leaf and limb is being staged at that particular location. C&D will be carried directly to Sampson County. We have communicated to the contractor that the debris has to be out of there by mid-October.
The question is, what are we going to do in the future, like for next hurricane season and the year after and the year after, since that's going to be a park and we won't be able to use it for a staging area?
Yeah, we are already looking at options for that. Some of those options that have been discussed are the 400 acres that we have on the outside of town. That's what we're looking at right now. Anyone else?
Mr. Manager, would you let the public know how the debris pickup, just go over, just in case they don't know, leaf and limb is first, and then you're picking up broken docks and things of that nature, and that's going to be a long haul situation. So just make sure I'm on track with that.
So the strategy is to pick up all our leaf and limb debris first. That's a little bit quicker process than what we call the construction and demolition debris. Brunswick County has decided that they're not going to accept any C&D material from any of the municipalities in the county, and so that's going to require us to carry it to the Sampson County landfill, which is going to significantly slow down the process. So we wanted to get as much off the streets as we could to begin with the leaf and limb debris, and so the C&D is going to take a little bit longer, but we still anticipate having this job done by the middle of October.
Now, the county has gone and issued a free dump week next week as well, and we're not participating in that, right?
That's for residents only. It's not for us. Not the commercial debris that we can carry out there, no.
What does C&D stand for?
Construction and demolition, like the dock material, that sort of thing.
Can Brunswick County do that? They can refuse to accept their own municipality's C&D material?
Well, they did.
I mean, what? That makes no sense.
Well, I agree with you. I've had several conversations with the county manager, and just, I'd be more than happy to discuss that with you at length, if you'd like to come by my office.
Just go on record as saying that's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard of.
Yeah, we're not a part of Brunswick County, it seems. When we finish in Taylor Field, the cleanup for that.
We're anticipating being out of Taylor Field by the middle of October.
But when we do, we need to really go behind and make sure that the group that's cleaning up truly cleans it up. Because the last few years, there's been a lot of stuff that's been left.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. Next up, Mayor's comments. I just have a few. In terms of the hurricane cleanup, what we've been talking about, it continues. And I want to thank Public Services Department, Mr. Fox, Mr. Stanley, thank you and your department for that. Keep that going. The Southport Virtual Merchant Showcase is on the city website, focusing on dining and shopping in Southport, and in particular Southport Safe. So I want to thank the Tourism Department and the Communications. I want to thank Randy Jones. I want to thank Lisa Anderson and Sharon Venice for that. And if you've not seen it, go look at those videos. Again, to echo what Mayor Pro Tem said about the UDO, I want to thank the Planning Board and also the liaisons, the Mayor Pro Tem, John Allen, thank you for working with them, City Planner, Thomas Lloyd. I know you've memorized that UDO by now, so I appreciate all your help. City Clerk, thank you for your help with it as well. I'd like to congratulate Chief Todd Coring. I don't know if you've seen in the pilot, he was awarded Officer of the Year by the American Legion Post 543. So congratulations, Chief, and thank you for your hard work. And if you've also seen the pilot, since we were talking about, of course, 9/11, at the on the front page, there's a story about Officer Lee Wigmore, who was in New York. It was a New York State trooper on that day, and there's a story about him. And also, we just recognize all men, women who were there who served on that day. Also, congratulations to the pilot. Alex, the pilot receives the Media Outlet of the Year award, and there's a wonderful picture of the editor, Morgan Harper there. So congratulations. Again, we want to thank all our first responders for the job they do and continue to do. And thank you again, Chief Drew, for the invocation tonight. And Mr. May, thank you for being here. And thank everyone in the public for being here tonight. And those are my comments. Staff reports, they're in your agenda packet. Board comments. Mr. Allen?
None. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Spencer?
Yes, sir. I've got a few. I do appreciate the beginning of the meeting. You mentioned Dr. Larry Hembe, and Dr. Larry Hembe, like everyone in Southport, was special to me growing up. Not to be political, but there was a presidential candidate that wrote a book, It Takes a Village. And truly in Southport, there was a village of people that they were mentors. And I grew up with a lot of mentors that guided me along the way. When I went astray, they got me back on the path. Larry Hembe was one of those mentors. He moved here in 1976. At the time, we only had one dentist. Young, vibrant, never met a stranger. He started his dentistry business near the hospital. He promoted weekly in the newspaper oral health. He was an educator, an empowerer. Lived his entire life after college and his education on River Drive, my neighborhood. I first met Larry when I was an entrepreneur cutting grass, and we had some good times. Larry, I'm not big on country music, but Larry got me hooked on Ronnie Millsap somehow. And today I was listening, and one of the songs is "What a Difference You Made in My Life." And there's a lot of people that made a difference in my life, and this man was one. And I am grateful for Larry Hembe and his service to Southport. And we love Miss Linda and his wife Dee Dee. And I encourage you to take a part in a young person's life and be a positive role model, because it makes a difference. God bless you, Larry. Mr. Lombardi last week, next subject. Mr. Lombardi, thank you for mentioning parking issues. I thought about it, and we need to look at our locations for different opportunities to create parking in the city, instead of reducing the opportunities for these. Restricting these businesses, we need to empower these businesses. And there are locations around Taylor Field. Now that Taylor Field is coming into play, we need to look at connectivity for that location, connecting Taylor Field with Judy White, Lester Lowe Park. And these parking areas are places that would feed that park. So I need you to become familiar with that region and the opportunity that is there. So that's very important. September 11th, man, who could forget that? I remember watching it, and I was in Raleigh, and we walked outside, and all my neighbors were just standing in disbelief looking at each other. And it's one of those times, just like now, where we think it's almost the end of the world, and somehow we survive. And that's being American. That's exciting. Finally, I'm very proud to have been allowed to be a part of a group of people that they started a nonprofit. It was really started with the fire department, the police department, Southport Cares. And you see on Facebook, you see them passing out donation money to different restaurants, self-employed people who were affected by COVID. And I think recently we saw where we passed on some money to the water rescue over at Oak Island. And I want to applaud the fire, the police, rescue, and then they included me. I do not know why, but I am honored to be a part of that organization, and I appreciate all the good work they've done, and they surely deserve to be acknowledged. And Ms. Hilliard, thank you for what you've done for us. I'm excited about your program. People hear me, and I'm going to do it again. There's a little computer. It's called a Raspberry Pi. It's not something you eat. It's something that you can buy for $50, and you can teach children to program computers. For the older adults, if you wanted to make your own personal bartender that would make your drinks for you, this would do it too. But for the kids, we're going to stick with robots. And I would love for you to look into that, find out how we can not only give them a laptop, but I want to give them this computer that will help them learn programming and skills that might bring some industry and some jobs, might create an entrepreneur amongst us, so that we might have some paying jobs in this community one day. And I really appreciate what you've done. Your father, I'm sure, would be so proud of you. So thank you so much for what you've done. And the tennis, my wife, some on Facebook call her the alternate alderman, which I don't appreciate, but she is. She interviewed you, and she came home to me one day and she told me about this little kid you had given him a tennis racket and tennis shoes, and how he just beamed with pride. That's what we need to take care of. We need to take care of our people, our kids, our children first, before we ever do anything else. Thank you so much. Yes, ma'am. I'm good.
Well, Mark stole a little bit of my thunder, because all I could do is sit here and think about how much I want to express my appreciation for the high-quality program that's going on through Parks and Recs. The tennis STEM program it's amazing, and I appreciate your volunteer effort to do it, Ms. Hillard. I appreciate your ability to bring the funds to the program and probably work so that you have those sponsors that support it. Thank you all so much for putting that on for our children here in Southport, and thank you to Cookie for being our contact in the Parks and Recs department to bring it all together. But the other things I want to talk about tonight is the policies. And just like we had information provided to us tonight about salary and grades and steps and how we administer those things for, employees, there's two other policies that have come up that I would like us to examine in the near future. Citizens have inquired recently, and one of them is mosquito control, and the other would be solar energy billing. And I think the solar energy billing, we've already had some literature provided to us from Mr. Pittenger in Public Works. So perhaps if we can have that on the agenda for November to discuss our policy and whether or not we want to stay with the way metering is done, or if we will seek to change it. But then the mosquito control, I'd like us to look into it into the winter, so that by next spring, if we're going to continue with the program the way it is, or maybe make some changes.
Alderman Sharkey, may I make a suggestion that the solar metering be remanded to the rate committee for further study and for a recommendation back to the board? Would you be agreeable to that?
We can certainly. I'm not sure who currently serves on the rate committee, so the mayor will have to give us that direction.
Okay, thank you. Excellent policy suggestions and discussion. Thank you. Alderman Davis.
I want to commend Officer Jared Jeffrey. Early Saturday morning, I went out on my porch, and I'm very fortunate to live on the yacht basin, very close to the old dock. And two guys with fishing poles walked out on that old dock. What's left of it, extremely dangerous situation. So I went in and called 911, thinking, oh gosh, it'll take half an hour before they get here. Maybe I need to march down there and say something to them. But before I could even get back out onto the porch, Officer Jeffrey was there. And he very diplomatically and efficiently got them off the dock. And this made me think at the time how fortunate we are, how blessed we are to have the police department that we have in Southport. We can rely on them. They are so well trained, so professional, and so much of it is thanks to Chief Corey. So thank you. That's it from me.
Mr. Lombardi.
Just another thank you to Lisa and Randy for that great production. I really enjoyed it. And usually Laura mentions this, but the sensing to send in your sensor information, the time is running out. And hope everybody in Southport has done that. Thank you.
Pro Tem.
Thank you, Mayor. I only have one thing that I wanted to speak back to Taylor Field. As we go into this next phase of beginning to make Taylor Field Park a reality, I wanted to express sincere gratitude for the generosity of Jim and Ginger Harper. Without the donation of the land, the dream of Taylor Field Park would not be possible. Not only did the Harpers give the city about 5 acres to establish the park, the city was able to use the value of the land as the city's match to qualify and receive the grant from North Carolina Parks and Recreation Trust Fund for over $400,000. This grant will fully fund the first phase of the project, which includes the dog parks. On the surface, the gift of land was worth twice the value of the donated property. In reality, the Harpers gave the citizens of Southport prized open space and a park that will forever be part of our community, and we are better for it, and we are grateful.
Yeah, thank you, and the Harpers' influence on our town and their generosity continues, and I'm grateful that you brought that up. That's a very important thing to remember. We talk about Taylor Field a lot, but go back to the very beginning of how we got that land and what it means to the city and how we got that grant. It's good to reinforce that, so thank you. Our next item on the agenda is adjournment. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Mayor Pro Tem, a second. Okay, all in favor? All right. Meeting adjourned. Thank you. Thank you all for being here.